Hello and welcome to our 26th edition of FSI Fridays. I'm Johansson, live in Charlotte, joined by
Edwin, live in Boston.
Hey Edwin, what do we have lined up for today?
Happy New Year, Johansson, and those of you in the audience. Looking forward to a productive 2021. Today, we're going to talk about the challenges and risks that financial services organizations face around mission-critical business processes in Excel.
Next, we'll talk about one of those processes, the cloud architecture and security review workflow. The personas that are involved in this scenario focused on getting new cloud solutions to be adopted for financial services.
And third, we'll see this in action with a really cool demo going through the annual attestation process and how easy it is to tweak and create your own.
Then we'll wrap it up with Q&A.
Today on FSI Fridays.
For those of you watching live or on YouTube, as a quick reminder, we'll spend about 30 minutes on today's topic.
And leave the last 5 minutes to address any burning questions.
So please use the Q&A window and we'll monitor for questions during the presentation. If you're watching the recording, feel free to use the comments below to ask your questions.
So let's get started and meet the presenters for today. Johansson, who's our special guests this week?
Thanks, Edwin. We're honored to be joined by two wonderful guests today. Let's start with you, Peter. Thanks for being on the show today. Can you let our audience know what your role is at Microsoft and what your typical day is like? I also hear you hold 2 black belts. What's that all about?
Thanks, Johansson. So I'm a managing director for a business applications team for the Americas, and I specialize in financial services. So I work with our most strategic accounts in banking and insurance, and just deal with a lot of the different specialist requirements that they've got around business applications and looking for value that we can drive out of our platform. And as far as the 2 black belts, I'm part of a team known as Global Black Belts, and I'm one of the few members of that team that actually holds a real black belt in Taekwondo.
That's amazing, Peter. I look up to you. I was an exchange ranger only and a green belt, so I have a little more ways to go for 2021. So Raga, we're also joined by Raga Kohli. Raga, what's your role at Microsoft? I also hear you have a fun way to spend family time together.
Yes. Hi, Edwin, and hi, everyone. Happy New Year, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Raga, and I'm an account technology strategist at Microsoft. In my role, I primarily work with one of our global financial services customers in helping them accelerate their digital transformation across Microsoft technology. Prior to this, I have over 5 years of industry experience. So I was at a financial services company within the IT line of business IT division. So across many different roles, project management, business analysis, etc. So I'm really looking forward to the presentation today and showing you guys what we have. And yes, Edwin, our fun family time is board games and card games everywhere. So my family and I really enjoy playing board and card games, Catan, Codenames, Ticket to Ride, you name it. So that's our fun family time together each time we get together.
That's great, Raga. I love board games as well. So let's dive right in. Peter, a lot of our financial services customers are building processes in Excel to manage all of the kind of different workflows. And it becomes pretty difficult for IT to be able to manage them and get applications approved. What are the challenges that you're seeing with our financial services customers today?
And so they can call this end user computing. It's basically where the business needs to stitch something together. So they're using the tool, which we really appreciate. They're using something from Microsoft. They use Excel typically to create some formulas, to manipulate data, create a process. The problem is that IT has no visibility into it. So they have to have a way of moving forward. And in this example, we have a number of IT organizations that are actually using Excel themselves to manage their own processes. And this one is cloud approval. So there's a lot of different depth that they need to go through, a lot of security questions, architecture questions, a lot of analysis that they need to do before they'll let an application get into the cloud. The difficulty is that we've got this centered around a black box. There's not a lot of in FSI around what's actually happening as part of the process. So they're emailing a whole bunch of questions, again, in Excel, to a group. The group needs to answer all those questions and then send it back over. And that's where it's really in this process that no one has any visibility to. And there's a lot of rework that's going on around assigning who's going to answer the question or who needs to look at the answer for that question. So there's a lot of manual processes that can take a lot of time. And also, these all have to be stitched back together in order to come up with, okay, this is everything we've got, everything's answered. yes, we can approve this, or we need more information, or this isn't going to fit as an application for the cloud. But it's that black box that we need to open up and understand what's going on inside.
Peter, I really like how you laid it out here for us, but can you go ahead and, how could this work today for our financial services customers as it relates to getting a new cloud solution to be adopted or leveraged inside a bank as well? And who are the typical players involved in this process?
So we've envisioned this as as part of the not only that initial I need approval, but the annual attestation, or when new questions occur, how do we stitch that together as well? And so we've simplified it into a number of personas. The global cloud application security review administrator, where they'll be administering the whole process. So they'll be identifying applications that are coming in and need a review, assigning people who are going to be reviewing it, liaisoning with the app manager who's responsible for answering the questions around it. And then that app manager can then go out and assign those questions to individuals within their group, like their security officer, their architect, those personas across it. And the idea is make it as simple as possible and minimizing the amount of work that somebody has to do and tracking everything as we go so that everyone has visibility. The global administrator can see where the status of those questions are, as well as the app manager can see how their people are doing, and then as far as the overall review process goes.
Peter, this sounds like a really long and possibly even painful process, requiring multiple different people and making sure that questions are up to date. I'm probably sure that we can make this process much faster. And I hear you have a solution leveraging our Power Platform that can actually help our financial services organizations accomplish this at a rapid pace. Our audience loves to see demos. Peter, can you show us your screen and walk us through this end-to-end solution?
Absolutely, happy to. And we're going to go through the different personas. So I'm in as the overall administrator of the review process, and I start with making sure that I've actually got the right questions. So as regulatory changes occur or as bank policy changes, I need to make sure that that my group is asking the right questions of applications that are running. So we have these master question groups, and they're version controlled so that as changes occur mid-year, during quarterly reviews or anything like that, I'm actually looking at what has changed between the previous version and the new version so that I can request updates from applications that are already in the cloud around it. So I'm just going to quickly drill into our most current attestation. I have an effective date, I have an end date, and then here, a list of all of the questions that we need for an attestation to be answered on an annual basis. So this allows me to control all of those, all of the specifics that need to go out, and then eventually the answers that need to come back across it.
So, Peter, what I noticed is I saw architecture. I know there's a category for security. What about like regulatory? So in other words, can financial services customers leverage this to manage regulatory processes for their applications as well? So, regulatory changes happen all the time. What happens between the first attestation and then the next one on this annual process? And what if there's a new regulation that comes in? Can I interject questions into this whole process?
Absolutely. You just create a new version. And again, it tracks the difference between the two. So if I last quarter, for example, approved an application on a specific version, those new questions can automatically go out, and it's only the new questions. They don't have to start from scratch. They're only answering the new questions, and can provide it in flight as they go. So again, we're simplifying that process. We're also making sure that the approved applications are under the current regulations.
That's really powerful, Peter. I'd love to see how we would do this attestation process and what it would look like. Could you walk us through, if I was I had a new application, I wanted to get it through this process, what would it look like from the different personas?
Absolutely. So again, as administrator, I have this FSI Friday app. We've set up some samples here for the session. When the application was originally published, so this actually is already in, but it's going to be due for an annual attestation. So our last approval date was last January. I have the application version. So I have a picture of the application, including who the application owner is and making sure that obviously that it's approved. To go in through the process, all I have to do is add a new attestation to this application. FSI attestation for 2021. Here again, I'm looking for the which question group I'm going to be using, version controlled, and I'm going to send it out today. That's all I have to do in order to manage this. We could have this automatically generated, but you'll see here what's happening is it's actually to this attestation, it's going in the background, and you can see it in real time adding those questions to this attestation. And they are the questions from that current version. So I've got those. What it's also done is it's gone out and brought the application information in. So now it's being sent to the application manager, Krista Geller.
Well, that's amazing. I love the beginning of this workflow, right? So curious, what does it look like from the application manager perspective? So how do they get notified? Krista, what's the process look like? Raga, can you go ahead and walk us through that side of things?
Absolutely. So I'm logged in as Krista Geller, the app manager. And what you'll see here is I'm in the Teams window. So I'm opened within Teams and I'm collaborating with my coworkers, and I receive a notification that an annual attestation is pending and pending my review. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead into this team here. This team is generated when I've submitted the the FSI Friday app for the SASR review. So it's an auto-generated team, and this is where I will collaborate with my team about this this cloud application and security review process. So I'll go ahead into the SASR portal, and what you'll see here is the Power App, the application portal that I'll use to make any changes or contact the review team is embedded within Teams as a tab. And once I open up the application, you'll see that it's automatically picked up single sign-on. So I'm automatically logged in as Krista Geller, and I'll see my persona view into this app. So what I'll see here is I have the option to submit a new application. Let's say I have a new business application that I'm developing and I'd like to submit it for our architecture review. I can go ahead and do that here. I can report changes to existing applications, or I can take a look at my already approved applications. So I can see here the FSI Friday app is already approved, and there's an annual attestation that requires my attention. So I'll go ahead and click into this attestation. At this time, what I'm looking at here is details around this annual attestation, and I can see here that there's 13 questions that require response to attest that this application is in compliance. And I'll go ahead and assign these questions to my architecture and security officer. So I can see that those fields are empty here, so I'm going to go ahead and assign our architect, Diane Prescott, and Dan Jump, our security officer. I'll update this attestation, and I'll go ahead and assign these questions to the architect and security officer. So what's happening in the background here is a workflow is running to go through each of these questions and assign them based on the area of question to the appropriate person, whether it's our architect or the security officer. What will happen in just a second here is the same workflow will add a task for me to follow up with Dan and Diane to submit this attestation. So to make sure that we don't lose track of it and are tracking it within our to-do integration. And all of this is happening within Teams.
So I noticed as soon as the app was created, Raga, a whole Microsoft team was created and all the relevant, relevance for to go through this process. So people can collaborate. But what does that actually look like for an architect or a BSO that has to answer one of these questions or go through the process? What does their view look like?
Great question, Edwin. So what I'm going to do right here is switch personas. So right now, I've switched my screen into Dan's login. So again, within Teams, I'm logged in as Dan. And once Krista has assigned the attestation to me, I've received a notification. So you can see within here, Krista has sent me a message to me and Diane, our architect. And I can see here that it's that time of the year again to submit the annual attestation for the FSI Friday app. So it's notifying me to go into the portal to submit the my answers as a security officer to the attestation. So I'll go ahead and open the CASR portal again. And what you'll see here is now, again, the single sign-on is picking up as Dan. So the profile and the customization is very different to what we've just seen with Krista. And I can see that I'm logged in as Dan, and I see that I have 3 questions that require my response for this attestation. So I'll go ahead and click in.
That's really cool, Raga. Just to take a second here, just to acknowledge that was all single sign-on. You didn't have to log into another application or jump into another portal. You're doing all of this actually inside of Microsoft Teams. You're even getting those notifications as you kind of do your day-to-day work. As new questions or new things change as part of this review process, you're getting a little notification in your activity bar. It's bringing you directly into this application, and you're all kind of staying in the flow of work. It's really making that end user experience really rich.
Yeah, absolutely, Johansson. And that's what's really valuable about this platform, is that it's tightly integrated with Office 365. So you're never taking the end user away from their day-to-day work or where they're spending a lot of their time. Whereas in the previous process, the end user had to monitor their inbox for emails and to track all of those Excel files. Now you have one single portal, which has different personas. So it's a highly customized portal where, as an app manager, I can see the approved applications. As a security officer, I can see exactly the attestations that require my response. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and look into this attestation. So I can see here that the attestation for the FSI Friday app requires 3 security questions to be answered. So I'll go ahead and answer these questions. For the purpose of this demo, I'll keep the answers very simple. And what I'll go ahead and do is also attach a file here to further justify the answer. For the purpose of this demo, I'll just put in a photo of New York, and I'll go ahead and submit this answer. What the system will do is, in the background, the answers will get submitted, the status to these questions will be updated, and I can go ahead and navigate to the next question here. So there's no change to the PII data. And then the last question is around if there's any change or an expansion of the information classification. So I'll go ahead and enter no change here as well and submit this last answer. So at this point, I've completed all of the security-related questions as a security officer for this app. So I can go ahead and go into the portal again, and I'll see that there's 0 questions that require my response. So I can go ahead and continue with my day-to-day work.
So that was really powerful, Raga, in terms of kind of just staying in your workflow and just being able to answer those questions as a new app gets approved. Now, I'm kind of curious, what does this look like from an administrator point of view? So you've submitted all those questions. What happens next?
Yeah, so what's happening in the background is, if you noticed, when I had assigned those questions to the architect and the security officer, I've just shown you how the security officer can complete his questions. And right now in the background, we have the architect working on her questions. So what we'll see in just a minute is a notification back to Krista. So you'll notice that I've switched the persona. Now I'm logged in as Krista Geller, and you'll notice how we can close out this attestation and submit this for the review team. So you'll see here in just about a minute, I'll receive a notification that the attestation is ready for review, and that the architect and security officer have completed their portion of the task here. And while we're waiting for that, there we go. So the FSI Friday attestation is ready for review, and all of the questions have been answered by the architect and the security officer. So at this point, as the app manager, I can go into the SASR portal, and I'll see that this FSI Friday app attestation is ready for review and submission. So I'll go ahead and jump in, and I'll see that all 13 questions have been completed. What's very cool about this is the system automatically maintains an audit record, so I can see who all of these questions have been completed by and when they were completed, what are the answers. So as an app manager, I have a final review of these questions and answers, and I can after my review, go ahead and submit this attestation to the review team. So to close this process, what we see here is a confirmation that the attestation for this application has been submitted successfully. In addition, what you'll also see in just a minute is another workflow running to notify all of our application team that this attestation has been successfully submitted. So you can see that the app manager, the architect, and the security officer are all tagged in this Teams message. Another integration that is also very cool is that you also can send automated emails. So this is an email record that the attestation has been submitted. It's sent from Krista Geller to her team as well as the review admin.
Raga, this is a really cool demo. I love how, you're not just switching back and forth from different tools. We'll probably talk about that later, but this workflow seems pretty intuitive. I love the clean look. So, after this message gets and notification happens, what also happens, from the administrator perspective? Is this something that you can share, Peter?
As Raga said, so we're back actually in my administration view of the application. So now you can see actually I now see who the architect and the security officer who approved it. I can see all of the questions and I can see their status here. So now I have that. Plus, I have a process flow for the administrator that we're now in submission mode. So the application managers organize their team, they've submitted the questions, and I now have those. So I can bring those questions up individually and look at them holistically as we go across, so I can actually see the answers that came across. So these are the architect answers that were happening in the background. You'll notice the answers are locked. I can't make any modifications to them. I can come down to the security question here. Here's the answer that Raga entered, and I've got access directly to the image that she submitted. So this again could be supplemental documentation around it, but I just said again at the click of the button, I've got access to all of this information, so I can actually have this assigned to my team for full review around it. So this allows me to really rapidly manage that process once it comes back to us for review and approval.
Yep. As we think about this attestation process, right? You're showing us in the realm of a cloud, approval process, but I'm sure that this could also have other applications and use cases in reviewing different apps. And you seems like you have a fairly bit amount of customization that's in play here. Could you talk a little bit about that?
We use the term configuration versus customization. Customization is code. There is not a single line of code written in any of what we've shown you. In fact, I'm going to go a little bit deeper and talk about the next year's process. So I'm going to show that in context of manually running this, but we could automate this process. But we want to make this as simple as possible for anyone to use it. So I'm just going to create a new attestation from this existing one that we just updated. Just give it a second to load. But literally, this just took a little amount of time. There's no code. I'm not a developer. I haven't written code in probably 25 years. So this was all done using the Power Platform, and I think we're going to get into a little bit of detail. But I wanted to kind of show you a little bit of what's going on in the background. That little flow that I ran, you'll see it actually running here. And this was built, as I said, very, very quickly. Raga and I have, so you can see here, 1 minute ago, this is the process. Usually I have, when this loads up, I can actually show you in kind of real time, but it walks through the steps of creating that attestation. Again, there's no code inside of this, going through each question. But the other thing that we did with this, so we wanted to make this, again, as I said, as easy as possible, is we actually applied the original answer so that next year they have to answer the same questions. Well, why would they have to re-answer or go look up what they did last time? So if we look here, it's created a new attestation, and I can jump into the answer, the questions in here, and they're already pre-populated with the answer from last year. So again, saving that amount of time, no changes this year. So it's been pre-populated with it. So we're trying to save that. But as I was saying, Raga and I have full-time roles, sometimes more than full-time roles, but we spent about a week developing both sides of this, the application, from the data perspective, from the functionality perspective, both from the administration and from the app manager's perspective.
This is fantastic, Peter. One of the things that was mentioned earlier is a challenge to financial services organizations where many times they're working in multiple versions of this process, and it's really difficult to manage. Peter, looks like you just showed us a method that, allows our customers to continue that process on a yearly basis, having the same questions and answers from previous years applied. What's the real magic, happening in the background? There's a lot of stuff going on, but I think, there's something that's missing here.
Yeah, so we're using the Power Platform, and so we're taking this Excel process and we're leveraging the Power Platform in the background and a number of different capabilities of it. So we're using our Dataverse, and within the Dataverse we get built-in security, we get built-in roles, we get built-in single sign-on capabilities, encryption. All of those different pieces are just there for us as plumbing that we don't have to do. We just leverage. Then we have the ability to rapidly create data-focused applications like the administration portal that I showed you, and then the really, really super rich applications that can be on a phone or that can be built within Teams, where we can have a user who's in context of their day-to-day work quickly go in and get something done around this. That would they'd normally be shifting between Excels and having to track all of this information. It's just all done in the background for them. Then we're also using our Power Automate flows to automate everything that you saw going on in the background, all the notifications, the emails, that ability to create the new version of the attestation or add the questions to a new attestation. That's all managed in a flow. Again, no code required.
That's really amazing. I mean, the whole demo was really amazing, showing that workflow capability. But there's a lot of data around here. And Raga, could you just comment a little bit around where all this data is actually living and how our financial services customers can actually leverage this data to do other things?
Yeah, absolutely. And that is it's a really important topic because as Peter has mentioned before, right, one of the biggest challenges is all of this data sits within Excel or on a particular user's desktop. So it's always not visible to IT teams or not visible to other business processes that could leverage the data that's being generated in this particular process. So what you've seen in the demo is bringing all of that data into a single source. And that's Dataverse, as Peter has mentioned. So what we're doing is we've just shown you this demo across a number of different personas, and all of those personas, all of those application portals are all accessing one single data source. So as Peter mentioned, another challenge is that big black box in the middle between the application team and the review team. And we've sort of opened up that black box and as the application team is working on their side to fill in questions for the attestation, Peter on his side as a review admin could check the status of those questions as well. So all of this is central. The data is central to all of the streamlining process here.
That's that's really cool, and I think that's really powerful as well. And we see the slide that's come up here around the Power Platform, and I think, Peter, I'd love to hear your perspectives on this as well, because you did say that you didn't write any lines of code and that you're not a developer, and that you have day jobs and you built this all in a week. How is this all possible with the Power Platform?
So the Power Platform, it's designed to do exactly what we've done. It's designed to be able to model out data that you're needing. So you're not limited to a spreadsheet kind of format. You can really extend it and expand on a lot of out-of-the-box pieces that we use. For example, the concept of where I'm sending an email, I've got a user. That's built into the platform. It has concepts of products and things like that, so that I can leverage as part of it. So there's a lot of pre-built inside the Dataverse. But then as I'm adding on pieces, we didn't even cover where we could create some rich analytics on top of it. It's a Power BI, the ability to look at how long the attestation process is taking, how long questions are taking to answer, and again, looking at areas that we can improve it. But that rapid application development with the Power App, both the rich Teams-based app as well as the administrators app that I showed you, deep automation with the workflow capabilities, but also tapping into everything that we do as Microsoft, tapping into, if we needed, we could tap into some AI around it, but that ability to generate emails, generate cards on Teams, so that it's becomes part of the natural way of working, rather than I have to go and think and remember about this. It's doing that. We even had a task automatically created. We could wrap this even in a bot if necessary, with the power of virtual agents.
Peter, I love how you wrapped all this together. One of the things that, I know our customers are thinking, I am as well, is, it looks like this could be streamlined. Raga, how extensible is this to other business processes? You showed a great example of one specific process. I imagine there could be many more.
Yes, absolutely, Edwin. What we've shown is one specific business process, but as you can imagine already, this process of automating and streamlining could be applied to any internal process or external process that a financial services customer has. So some examples of how we've used this technology are return to work solutions, or loan processing, or the internal processing for generating wire transfers, looking at the fund payments that are coming in and generating wire transfers to allocate that money, security services operations. So there's many different internal processes where this technology could be applied to achieve very quick results.
Thanks for that context, Raga, and I can't wait to see what our financial services customers come up with in terms of leveraging this Power Platform. And so speaking of that, I'm sure our audience is really excited to start working on this. What are the call to actions and resources available for our customers to get started with this right away?
So I have a blog post that was posted last week just around end user computing and the problem that it has, and the tend for FSIs to not have ownership of that problem, but it's something the regulators are coming down hard on them. Raga, did you want to cover what we offer internally to help our customers?
Absolutely. We have a lot of resources. So you'll see there's a link in here to the Microsoft Learn page for the Power Platform. So there's a lot of self-service education that you could get in training videos and just content around the Power Platform. And we also have a lot of documentation on the Power Platform. So we'll put a link to that as well. If you'd like to get started quickly, we do recommend contacting the account team. We host what are called App in a Day trainings, where you can come in and within one day, 8 hours of a workshop, you can learn to leverage all of those components of the Power Platform within one day to build a fully functional working application. So I definitely recommend the App in a Day events. That's actually how I myself have learned how to use the Power Platform, is to join those events.
I'm really excited for our financial services customers with what you've just shown. Peter and Raga, thank you for sharing your time and perspectives. I'm positive our viewers have learned a wealth of valuable information.
That's right, Johansson. So what we learned today is the traditional implementation of architecture review management solution can be quite complex and tedious.
We saw some awesome demos showing a model-driven management application, a Canvas submission app, and an advanced Power Automate workflows, questions, versions, reviews, and even automating it for the following year.
And no coding experience? No problem. Power Platform is your low-code, no-code solution to simplify the process, allowing organizations to focus on business needs rather than implementing and managing complicated workflows.
If you're interested in starting the journey, or if you're in the middle of it and would like some guidance, please reach out to your Microsoft account teams, and we can schedule an envisioning session or a follow-up. So really great stuff here. Edwin, it's time for Q&A. What are some of our viewers asking?
Right. So I got a question here from Anonymous. We're in a financial services organization. This process needs to be auditable, trackable. We're also worried about encryption of this data, where this data lives, security roles, SSO, authentication, encryption, and audit. How does this solution help with all of that?
Yeah, I'll take that one. So again, the Dataverse that I described earlier, auditing, the ability to have auditing on any field within it is fully available. It's out of the box. You literally turn a switch on, and now you've got what data was changed, who changed it, what the original value was, what the new value was. It's fully encrypted. It can be double encrypted with 2 keys if necessary. It's encrypted in rest and in transit, and it's sitting as part of your overall Microsoft platform in the cloud.
Great. We've got another question in here coming from Anonymous, and it's coming back to these lines of code, or the lack of lines of code. The person is curious to understand if both of you are developers or have a developer background. They tend to see a lot of these processes being managed by end users who don't have any sort of programming background. Can this be done by the security and architecture review teams to build this? Specifically, can we roll this out and have it be managed by folks that can ask the questions with, that have really no development experience whatsoever?
Yeah, absolutely. So as we've mentioned before, no code was written. A lot of the low code functionality for the Power Platform is drag and drop. So what Peter has shown you a little bit is a sneak peek of behind the curtains of how a Power Automate workflow looks like, and it's all drag and drop functionality. So just to talk a little bit about my background, I sort of have a development background, but it has been a while since I've done any coding. So as I've mentioned before, my first exposure to the Power Platform was to attend an internal app in a day session where we spent 8 hours just developing a fully functional business application in one day. And again, as with any new technology, there is a learning curve, and it is a fast one for the Power Platform. So there's a lot of content out there to learn about new ways to use this technology and to extend the demo that you've seen today. Peter, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about your background as well.
Well, I think I said earlier, it's been probably well over 20 years since I've coded. I started as a COBOL programmer, so I've got a lot of legacy behind me. And again, it really does come down to just once you dive into the platform, understanding the platform, and all of a sudden you can really solve some complex business needs. Think about it differently.
Just to share my perspectives on this, when I talk to customers sometimes around the Power Platform, I like to compare it to, their experiences using PowerPoint and Excel. PowerPoint from a visual perspective and Excel from a functions perspective. And imagine both of those things kind of had a baby, and out came kind of Power Platform. And that's, some of the ease of use that, some people that don't have coding experiences can actually really take advantage of this platform. We do have one more question in here in the chat window. It's really around security and compliance for financial services organizations. The question is around, how can this all be audited, and where does the data live? Peter, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, I covered some of that before. It really is the Dataverse handles all of that management of it. So you've got a platform that is compliant out of the box, and you can set up your IT processes around this as well, which I think is important. So you can have the business to build something and hand it off to IT. So rather than having the business own the Excel and then own all the responsibility around it, you can follow those secure processes that IT has simply by just handing this off. So we can manage this from an application lifecycle management as well. So we can adapt and adopt into what would normally be a standard IT process and still being generated from the business.
No, thanks. It seems like the theme around security and compliance, and people love this no code, low code. There's another related question: is how long did it take for you, Peter and Raga, to build this? Because you have full-time jobs, and they're trying to find time, right? The person who's asking is like, I have a full-time job too, and this is something I want to do. I have to learn new code. But how long did it take you to build what you just showed?
So this was about a week, but it was a week part-time for each of us. So over that week, Raga built out the application manager's view, and then I built out a lot of the administrator perspective around it. But it was part-time. Now we invested time up front. And so there was some learning that we'd already done. So we knew the platform coming in, but that's where you can get to with this. So you can do this in the way I describe it for a team that's going into a bank, as I'm saying, a lot of this should just be one sprint to analyze the problem, come up with the solution, and get it actually into production.
That's great, Peter and Raga. Looks like we're out of time. Thanks again for attending live or watching on YouTube and for asking questions.
Yeah, and if you haven't already, be sure to register for FSI notifications by, and invites by visiting aka.ms/FSI Fridays.
We're also open to constructive feedback, so please send us your comments and suggestions at aka.ms/FSI Fridays feedback.
And be sure to catch all the recordings of previous sessions on the FSI Fridays YouTube channel, aka MS FSI Fridays Recap, where you can also post any follow-up questions that weren't covered today.
And if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and like it. So Edwin, looks like we have an awesome lineup for the rest of January that I'm excited about. Why don't you give an audience a preview of what's happening over the coming weeks?
Definitely. We have a really amazing lineup for jumping January. So January 15, Todd Kidda and Alex Steinberg, architects from our Microsoft Technology Centers, will focus on techniques and solutions that will help address challenges financial institutions face around regulation and modern security landscape, requiring organizations to have a good handle on what data is being managed.
And on January 22nd, we are honored to be joined by our Corporate Vice President of Worldwide Financial Services, Bill Borden, who will discuss the evolution of modern financial services and best practices for transforming digitally and meeting the needs of the market across the globe.
And finally, on January 29, our solution showcase, where we joined by Steve Tetrol and Ken Kuzdas from our partner Nudizic, who has a really neat solution enabling customers to quickly and easily apply AI to business scenarios.
You won't want to miss it.
Thanks, and see you next time
on FSI Fridays.